Within the realm of high school debate, an arena traditionally known for its intellectual stimulation, where logic, evidence, and reasoning have long been paramount, concerns are beginning to surface. It appears that this long respected practice has veered away from its original course. The driving factor behind this transformation is the growing utilization of race, gender, and identity as tactics for achieving victory, overshadowing the value of one's argument. This article explores the pressing issue of how high school debate has taken an unsettling turn by using sensitive topics as tools to gain an advantage. High school debate has traditionally functioned as a platform for young, intellectually curious minds to partake in discussions firmly rooted in factual evidence and persuasive argumentation. Its primary goal was to foster critical thinking skills and prepare students for future pursuits where logical reasoning is of profound significance.
They have a white debater on their team, which inherently means they have more whiteness than us.
They have a white debater on their team, which inherently means they have more whiteness than us. Having a white team member can indeed influence a team's perspectives and positions in a debate, prompting inquiries into how identity can shape discussions and their ultimate outcomes.
We obviously know that JJ is not white. It's pretty obvious. Go down onto our pick. We give you three warrants why we subsume all of their protests and affirm their protests. In a pick, what it means is you are furthering their cause just minus the whiteness. As Rebecca is a vehicle for this movement, we say whiteness is really bad for representation in queer people.
Whiteness means really bad for representation in queer people. The discussion is centered on how the concept of whiteness can have a detrimental impact on the representation of queer individuals, leading to a contemplation of how identity politics and concepts like whiteness can influence dialogues about representation.
And it's a bad form of furthering this protest. The best way to further the protest is to vote for our pick and to affirm it, but minus the whiteness. They say that we're taking over JJ's labor, but first, this is a new response. If they read this response before, we probably would have read a CapK about how you can't use labor across identity lines. That's a really bad thing to do. Second, how picks work is you affirm their protest. We're not taking over their labor. It's just a technicality of debate. Then they say that it's trans exclusion. No. Couple responses that they dropped from Sanji. One, our constructive speech was about personal experiences about our identity. We are not comfortable discussing our sexuality on a live stream with 130 people. Second, we say that them telling us how we should represent our advocacy feeds into our link about racism because a white person, someone on a white team should never be telling two women of color how they should be furthering their advocacy.
Say a white person should never be telling two women of color how they should be furthering their advocacy. The question of who wields the authority to dictate advocacy methods, particularly when it comes to marginalized identities. A conservative perspective may raise apprehensions about the potential ramifications of identity-driven guidelines in debates and discussions.
That's an independent link into our whiteness argument that gets dropped. You can drop them right now. They say we should have read things about the Hall of Shame. It's an identity K. We are not trans debaters. We don't want to do that. Also, they don't put anything about women of color or queer women of color in their case, which means they also link it to the exclusion. There's no independent offense off of this. Then, at the bottom, all these stuff about the Louisville Project, their racist rhetoric and using the black labor as a way to further their advocacy is inherently racist. That's an independent reason to drop them. They say JJ wrote the argument, but no, Rebecca is a vehicle of the movement. You should never use a white person who's saying the Louisville Project and using it as an example of their advocacy in order to further a movement. Then using black suffering to advance in the tournament is just a bad thing to do.
Choosing black suffering to advance in the tournament is just a bad thing to do. Emphasizes a moral concern about exploiting the suffering or experiences of black individuals for personal benefit, even within the context of a debate. It underscores the importance of ethical conduct and respect for all individuals.
Then they say that it's just an example. A white person just shouldn't use a black person's suffering as an example of their advocacy. That's inherently a racist thing to do, and it's too late to respond to this argument in Final Focus, and it's the largest dropped argument.
It's too late to respond to this argument, Final Focus, and it's the largest dropped argument. The significance of addressing an argument that was not adequately tackled or countered in the debate is essential. This aspect is appreciated by those who value the fair and thorough treatment of crucial arguments and positions.
Also, another dropped argument that links into racism about how they're telling us how to represent our advocacy.
High school debate, once a stronghold of intellectual discourse, is now at risk of losing its true essence. The increasing reliance on race, gender, and identity as tools for gaining an advantage not only undermines the integrity of the activity, but is also inherently unfair and divisive. To restore its credibility and purpose, it is crucial to return to the foundational principles of debate, which means focusing on the merit of arguments and promoting critical thinking. A nationally ranked high school debater argues they have a white debater on their team, which inherently means they have more whiteness than us. These young individuals are encouraged by influential figures to employ race, gender, and identity as means of achieving victory instead of relying on logic, evidence, and reasoning. High school debate played a transformative role in my life. It's disheartening to witness its decline into what can be described as an anti-debate, anti-merit spectacle. Our only hope of rejuvenating high school debate lies in establishing alternative debate leagues where young Americans are evaluated solely on the merit of their arguments without any consideration of irrelevant factors. To make it abundantly clear, this situation is discriminatory. No student should be allowed to judge another student based on their race or any inherent characteristic. This incident in high school debate serves as a representation of the challenges white students encounter in our schools on a daily basis. They have a white debater on their team, which inherently means they have more whiteness than us. The argument they put forth is that by voting for their side, minus the whiteness, they are furthering the cause without the baggage of racial identity. They contend that their approach is more inclusive and beneficial for the representation of queer people. However, this perspective can be viewed as divisive. High school discussions had evolved into something entirely different, where the focal point had shifted dramatically. No longer were the debates centered around traditional academic subjects or abstract concepts. Instead, the hot topics were race, gender, and identity. The catalyst for this change was a passionate group of students who were determined to bring vital societal issues to the forefront. Under the guidance of their forward-thinking coaches and educators, they championed the integration of these subjects into the debating curriculum. They believed this shift was essential to foster inclusivity, empathy, and a deeper understanding of the complexities of the world. However, this transformation had far-reaching consequences. The quality of reasoning within debates became a subject of concern. Instead of the logical, evidence-based arguments that had once prevailed, emotional and subjective opinions took center stage. It was a double-edged sword, stirring up profound discussions while also sowing the seeds of hostility and division among the young debaters. Amid this evolution, a new question arose. What about the white students? They found themselves in a unique position, their racial identity suddenly an intrinsic part of their arguments. It was a situation that gave rise to moral dilemmas and cognitive dissonance. As they passionately advocated for causes they believed in, their actions sometimes seemed at odds with their deeply held beliefs in colorblindness and equality. The debates now revolved around the role of white debaters in advocating for race-related matters. The psychological aspects of identity, advocacy, and individual choice played a significant role when they expressed their viewpoints. The changes had their share of controversies, as the utilization of racial arguments often brought to the forefront pressing issues related to bias, stereotypes, race relations, and discrimination. It was a crucible that tested not only their intellectual acumen but also their emotional resilience. As debates became increasingly heated, it was essential to examine the potential for conflicts and racism within this new paradigm. The educators and coaches, once seen as guiding lights, now had to navigate a complex terrain, ensuring that their students' enthusiasm for advocating social change did not fuel animosity. The landscape of high school debates had shifted, and with it, the dynamics of student relationships. The young debaters were learning to navigate the treacherous waters of disagreement, finding common ground and sometimes begrudging respect for their opponents.
What do you think?
I promote myself and my videos. Hello, I'm Bong Sim, a Canadian resident of Asian descent. During the day, I work as a professional counselor, and at night, I do Uber food delivery. Instead of speaking in my videos, I prefer to express myself through writing. In today's world, speaking the truth can have serious consequences, both for my professional life and personal well-being. That's why I'm choosing to pen down my thoughts and using a platform to share them on my behalf. Some people find my videos uninteresting, too strict, and they even criticize the appearance of the individuals featured, including their tiredness, Asian, or perceived flaws. I understand these concerns, but I genuinely believe in the purpose behind creating these videos. Unfortunately, recent Canadian legislation has resulted in the censorship of free speech and online content, and although Google hasn't explicitly admitted their involvement, I suspect they play a part in it. Despite my efforts to monetize my content on YouTube, I haven't been able to earn any income from it. I've tried 3 times, and all my attempts were rejected. They turned me down for reasons like lacking creativity, not having a recognizable face, or not having a distinct voice. Nevertheless, I've made several adjustments to my videos, hoping to overcome these challenges. If you share my belief and support what I'm doing, I would genuinely appreciate your backing.